the pros and cons of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is pretty ubiquitous, so easy to buy routers, access points, easy to connect to PCs on your home network, and pretty good speed. And it has socket support on Linux, so that enables you to do multiple data streams, like a control channel and a video stream. Linux is good for webcam connectivity, that kind of thing. So a lot of that's a pretty strong pro for when to use for Wi-Fi, and I'm going to go through like pros and cons and thoughts on when it's appropriate, when it's not. Some of the downsides are that you, in a mobile type environment where you're like taking a router, taking a Wi-Fi system on site to a robot competition or something, then you may have to take your router with you and find a way to power it, which might mean batteries to AC converters, those kinds of things. So something to think about as you choose your wireless technology. It requires administration configuration to get on the network. So you got to select the Wi-Fi network that you want to connect to, and at a minimum, and then it's got to acquire an IP address if you don't set it up with a hard-coded IP. If you're switching between networks, it can go on different subnets. So all of that tends to introduce configuration time administration tasks, and in turn, those administration tasks bring along the need for a user interface to do them with. So I think that's a downside of Wi-Fi compared to some other technologies, is the level of setup that you have to do to get it on different networks, particularly when you're moving it between networks. It's generally higher cost and power than XP or Bluetooth. So you can get a Linux router for $60 that has USB and hack it to be a general purpose Linux box on Wi-Fi. Chumbies run 120. Arduino Shields look like they run around $50 for Wi-Fi. So it's kind of a high cost, kind of a high power consumption way to do wireless access.
So did you find the Arduino Wi-Fi shield for $50? I've been listening like the 80, 90 range.
I've got a picture of it coming right up. Just Google Wi-Fi shield, and you'll find there's like, I think, 2 manufacturers I found that are both in the $55 range. So when's Wi-Fi a good choice? I think when your device incorporates Linux, it's a good choice because a Linux device, you oftentimes want to download packages for like webcam access or net to serial conversion, or a whole variety of different things that you can get packages for. And when you want multiple streams of data, like video control, audio, logging streams, and you want to use sockets for them, so you can have multiple processes on a PC that are like pulling data off or sending data to your device. I think Wi-Fi and Linux are a good choice. So that's when you need when you want both clients and servers on your device, like maybe web servers. You get web servers on these Wi-Fi routers. Web server on Chumby, pretty easy to install. It's just a package that you download, and you can get a wide variety of packages that'll run on ARM and on MIPS, and as well as on x86 processors. So you find that the embedded devices running Linux tend to be either ARM or MIPS, and there are repositories of with reasonable collections of packages that you can get for those processor architectures. When you want your network, when you want to be on a network, so you want your device to be accessible from multiple computers, like your laptop and your your desktop PC, then Wi-Fi, just it being on a net, just gives you a lot of flexibility. So this is ASUS has a Wi-Fi router that runs about $60. It's got USB. You really want USB if you're going to be doing device control, because then you can plug in a USB to serial cable or a dongle, and then you can drive Arduinos or a whole variety of things with that. If you don't have USB on it, then you end up these routers and embedded devices typically have at least one serial port on them, and you can take it over and use it for device control, but you end up with it being dual use, because when Linux boots, it spits stuff out of its console, and when you type in stuff, you have to disable the process that's listening for console keystrokes. So, but disabling that can prevent you from reconfiguring your Wi-Fi parameters. So that kind of collision tends to drive you to wanting a USB is very advantageous.
So Paul?
Yeah.
Tanner's has got a bunch of D-Link 4-port Wi-Fi routers for, there's a whole stack of them. They're $10. Would this one be, or is this, I mean, would that, or you got to buy the $60?
Well, most Wi-Fi routers don't have USB, and so for device control, in my opinion, they're kind of questionable. Just because of the console conflict issue is really hard to get around. And now, as to whether their $10 D-Link routers run Linux in the first place, and second are hackable, the best thing to do is go to OpenWRT, the website that, and they've got a hardware compatibility list, and so you look at the model. I want to say on the Chumby, want to point out one of the values. Think about as that configuration aspect of needing to set up its SSID. So when Chumby comes up, it says, do you want to create a new internet connection? So we'll say use an existing connection, and then it lists the existing connections, and you can press Dallas Makerspace and say OK. And it says, yep, do you want to, it tells you what kind of encryption it's using, and then it goes on and connects to the network. What I'm illustrating here are the benefits of having a UI built into your Wi-Fi device. Were it not for the built-in UI, then I'd be getting out my PC and hooking up with a cable and starting up some kind of emulator program, and so it's just, I just want to say it makes things a lot easier to have a UI built into the device. This is one of those Arduino Wi-Fi shields, and I'm sorry I don't remember the manufacturer, but you can find it on Google. Dick pointed me to this one. The folks who built XP have just come out with a module that's in the XP form factor. It's around $50, and
How big is it?
it's the same. Have you seen those little XP? So Dick's going to show XP modules. They're like 1 inch by 1 inch. Dick's going to show them later on. So think the same form factor as that, but it does Wi-Fi. I want to point out something. Want to say something about this style of thing. So there are really two styles. There are two major styles of Wi-Fi connectivity here. There's the thing that runs Linux, including a Gumsticks board. Gumsticks boards have a Wi-Fi. Gumsticks board is a little Linux board, and you can get a Wi-Fi daughter board for it for $40. These three are modules that basically are associated with Linux, and you can open up sockets to them, have multiple processes listening on the sockets, all good stuff. These two here are intended for embedded single function microcontrollers, things like an Arduino or the like. And so they will listen on a socket and convert the incoming packet to serial and spit it out on serial. So there's some implications about that you need to think about. First is you've got to use a serial port coming kind of in the back end of the device to configure the SSID that it's supposed to connect to and find out its IP and those kinds of things. Do the administration kind of tasks. Second is you can't make it be a client and you can't. It doesn't have socket support. It's just got serial coming out of it. So you can make it be a web server if you want by having your microcontroller listen for an HTTP request coming in over the network. Configure it to listen on port 80 and then interpret the HTTP, parse it, generate some HTTP, spit it back out. But it's not multi-threaded the way that multiple processes listening on sockets are. And that's appropriate for the kind of programming model that you run in an Arduino kind of thing, where you've got a single while loop that just runs forever. But it's something to be aware of. It's an important conceptual difference. So I just covered that. Shield-like devices, 2-wire, serial interface. Consider USB desirable.
Paul, what does the word shield mean in this case?
Shield is what they call daughter boards that sit on top of an Arduino.
Okay.
So there's a standard for its mechanical form factor and electrical connections. But there are other styles than shields. So with that, any other discussion on Wi-Fi before I hand over to Dick for XP?
Range?
Range. So range is going to be normal Wi-Fi range. I will say on the Chumby, which failed to connect to the IP address. I don't know why. So the Chumby comes with a Wi-Fi that's a USB dongle installed in the base of the thing. It has rather poor range. It has rather poor range. So since it's got a USB dongle in the back, I pulled out the Wi-Fi USB dongle and put a regular old USB hub on the back end of it, and then plugged in a high power with antenna type USB Wi-Fi. So you can do things like that to extend the range, and I've taken it 500 feet down by the end of the lake, and it works just fine. Without this kind of thing, it was reaching 50 feet, 100 feet sort of range. So it depends a lot on your antenna and the power of your Wi-Fi interface.
So there's a lot of things that impact range. Paul had one USB dongle. If you had another one which has an integrated antenna, you get much less range. Within Wi-Fi, you can set the power up. I mean, silly old Wi-Fi is, relatively speaking to some of the other things, can be quite a current hog. In that, I work down in Arduino kind of class stuff, and Wi-Fi transmit power can be 300 milliamps on your 5-volt rail, and when your whole Arduino is only putting out 500 milliamps, to have and it's sitting there, and to have a 300 milliamp spike every time it transmits can causes some issues.
Well, if you were looking at it as overall complexity, well, maybe that's what this is.
Well, that's my chart.
That's Dick's chart.
Okay.
Yeah. What's
The question was, how hard is it to get started in this? I mean, let's say you went out, because the Chumby's $120, the router's $60, so you got at least $180 into it. How skilled do you have to be to take it to operational?
I think it depends on the approach you take. If you take a daughter board kind of, or shield for an Arduino kind of approach, those are pretty simple. You just need to read the manual on how to configure its SSID. If you're dealing with the Linux approach and hacking a Linux router, then you need a fair bit of skill in Linux.
Thank you.
I just wanted to plug another device, the DocStar. It's meant to be turn a USB hard drive into a network device, but it's got a 1 gigahertz processor, 4 USB 2 ports, and a gigabit Ethernet. And it's pretty easy to, if you know how to SSH, you can get it working on Debian or whatever. It's only you can get them for $60.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
They're quite nice.
DarkStar?
DocStar.
DocStar?
Yes.
I need to look into that. That sounds interesting.
It's similar to the power plug type of stuff, but it runs on 12 volts.
Okay. And Wi-Fi built in?
No, but it has 4 USB 2 ports.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What about something like a Panda board that already has Wi-Fi built onto it?
Yeah. That's a thought. I guess I didn't realize Panda board had Wi-Fi already on it, and it's a Linux-based board.
Yeah, it's Cortex A9.
Uh huh.
So it says it's got both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Uh huh. Great. Yeah, I think if you're running Linux, if you have to hack, like load a different Linux distro on it, you want to be fairly proficient in Linux. If you're doing something that's like really designed for hacking, like the Chumby is and the Panda board, then you can probably get away with being less proficient. But the whole idea, if you're running a Linux system, is to use your Linux system for something, right? So to run something.
The other advantage of Linux and USB is you can get a Wi-Fi adapter for $10, or $15. That's USB.
That's right.
So it's
That's
pretty
right.
negligible.
Yeah. Will.
My requirement is a simple, no hassle connection, or wireless connection between my Atmel microprocessor, robot, and a laptop.
That's my type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great segue. So don't use Wi-Fi.
So my question is, from what I heard you say, I don't want what you're betting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you might with the Wi-Fi XD, but Dick can talk about that.
But yeah, so let's move on. I'm trying to provide a balanced view of Wi-Fi and when it's good, what it's good for, what it's not so good for, the kind of baggage that it comes along with. So, but there are simpler solutions, and Dick and Ron are going to talk about them.
So the answer is no. This is not what
The answer is no. Ignore everything you just heard. Okay. Anything else? Okay, Dick, you're up.
Yeah. Okay.